Hey Globals, thanks for joining for our first Empowered Leader conversation for 2021. So thank you for joining. Thanks for being the first for this year. I actually started this Empowered Leader conversations last year. We had Natalia Nino from Colombia who shared her story, her Empowered Leader story, and I want to really provide this on a more regular basis. So we are starting today. Okay, there's no better time than the present, right? So we're going to start today and really get into these types of conversations on a regular basis. So for those that don't know me, my name is Belitza Dominguez, and I'm also known as Coach Beli for those that follow me on social media, on my YouTube channel called in the Lead Empower with Coach Beli community. So if you haven't joined, please do so and subscribe so that you can be kept up to date on the latest leadership tips and advice and these kinds of events that I'm hosting on YouTube. So the reason I wanted to start this Empowered Leader conversation platform is because around the world, I know there's a lot of different platforms out there to have conversations, to talk about our experiences, and I'm all about abundance, so I think there's never enough of a good thing. So I wanted to have this platform as well for you to share your thoughts, your comments as we have this kind of conversation so that you can be inspired and empowered in your life, and that we can also learn from you and be empowered as well and inspired through those types of conversations. So I'm excited to have you join us today and be a part of this conversation with Dr. Darina Douchi. She's going to share some inspirational words, talk about her personal life story, from having to move from Syria as a young teenage girl, married, and having to struggle as a single parent, and yet was able to still attain her PhD at a very young age of 23. And not only that, she also became a U.S. Army officer. She's a fellow veteran, just as myself, and this is like one of the connections that we have. We actually, just to give a shout out to Juana Williamson, she might be out there listening in. So we actually joined through the San Antonio international community, and I really just felt like a need to connect with other globals, just like in this platform, and that's how I met Darina, through that specific group. So thanks, Juana, for putting that group together. That's how we got connected. So not only is Dr. Douchi, a U.S. Army veteran, but she's also currently a medical legal consultant, and she's also an aspiring entrepreneur with a company called Curativo Enterprises, and she has 19 years of experience as a clinical pharmacist specializing in pain and psychiatric medicine. So she has a long resume, she has a lot of experience, but more importantly, she's an amazing human being, and she's just a wonderful individual that you want to just really hear her story and be a part of that conversation. So let's hear from Darina, Dr. Douchi, regarding her experience and being a part of a new culture, having to manage through tough, difficult times, getting out of that comfort zone, and really hearing her advice on how to be a more empowered leader. So without further ado, let me welcome my friend, amazing professional, Dr. Darina Douchi. So welcome, Darina.
Really hello.
Say hello to the audience.
Hi, how's everybody? Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be here.
So excited. Yeah, we have people from Texas, from Sweden, Germany, Pakistan as well. So we have a very global audience here, and hopefully we'll start getting more folks and seeing like where's everybody from and so forth. So please, in the audience, feel free to type in your comments, your questions as we're having this dialogue and this conversation that we're having today. So let's get started. Let's talk about you, Darina. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and more importantly, why did you feel it was that it was so important for you to share your story today on this Facebook Live event?
First of all, thank you for that intro. I felt like I was this celebrity with the introduction you gave of me. I am Darina Douchi, just a humble woman, originally from Syria. I consider myself an oppressed woman who came to the U.S. as a child bride at the age of 15. I now consider myself a liberated Texan woman. Yay, Texan, the Lone Star. I moved here actually in 2015 per Army orders when I was on active duty. I honorably retired since then in 2017 due to a back injury. I retired as a major. I pursued after that a career in big pharma and the biotech industry. I was in the service for about 9 years, which I absolutely loved, and I highly recommend everyone to consider joining the military, especially when you're a foreigner. You'll have a special appreciation of the land, of the people, their values. You get to understand the history, and you just learn how to embrace this new society as your own. I think it's a beautiful feeling to belong to a community that's accepting you. Currently, I work as the government accounts director for a biotech firm. My position covers all federal accounts in different capacities, from strategic developments of launching strategies to lobbying. I cover Department of Defense, Veterans Administration, Indian Health Services, Medicare, Medicaid, federal prisons. So I basically work on creating new benefit coverage statuses for our novel treatment products, which are prescription digital therapy. They are an app-based system, so for treatment of substance use disorder, opiate use disorder, chronic insomnia, and those are apps that were FDA approved for the treatment of chronic diseases. I am a clinical, so that's a quick of what I do currently. Why did I want to share my story? Honestly, I used to shy away from talking about my life. I never really thought it added value to anyone. It's just, my personal struggle. So big deal. But then anytime I've shared my story with people, I've seen a very positive reaction from people. I've heard people have come back to me and said, because of what you told us about you, we went back to school, or we changed things, or we were motivated to do such and such. So I thought, what, if I do this today and it motivates at least one person, then mission accomplished, right? And despite all the adversity and oppositions I have faced, I think having the positive attitude throughout all of it has been the best thing, and the main thing really to focus on.
Absolutely. No, that's great. And this is exactly why I wanted to have these kinds of conversations, because you never know who you're going to inspire, who, like that one little word, that one little thing you say that you, it's like, oh, it's just, my struggle. But being able to share that, you're able to actually inspire someone into action. They're like, you know what, if she can do that, then, I can do that as well. So that's a really, really that's the thing that we can admire, about these kinds of, being able to share these kinds of stories. So let's talk a little bit about you personally, about first, how did you end up in the United States? Tell us about your experience of, marrying at a young age and having to come to a brand new country, brand new culture. I mean, tell us about how that happened and your experience through that.
Okay, so here it goes. So when I was 15 years old, under certain circumstances, my parents decided that it was a modernly arranged marriage to somebody that they already knew. I got engaged at 14, got married at 15. Shortly after, I moved to the US in 95, had my son at 16, and then had my daughter at 18. So that's how I came to the US. Coming to the US was beautiful. I think one of the best things that happened to me, but I won't lie to you, the biggest crush to my spirit was when I was pulled out of school to be sent to the US for marriage. I wanted to continue my education badly. I don't know, I had this image of myself that I was going to be this successful woman. I had an image of myself in a business suit and in a briefcase. And when that happened, when I got married, I just felt like I was crushed, so I wanted to continue my education when I came to the US. So I started nagging my ex-husband, and well, that ended differently than I expected. But anyway, I ended up in school. Mission accomplished.
Well, I think this is something I want to really pause on and really share with the audience. So I think it's really important. I mean, one thing you said, at a very young age, you had a very clear vision that you saw yourself in that business suit, you saw yourself as this career woman, so you visualized that for yourself. And even though this obstacle came in, this situation where like, okay, now I'm going to become a mom and get married, and all my dreams were crushed at this point, you still had that vision in your mind, and that's what really kind of moved you forward. So as you were transitioning out of that marriage, how did you come about to finish your education and doing that while being a single mother?
So it didn't quite start that way. It started with me wanting to go to school, and the ex didn't want to, or his family also didn't want to. It was a messy situation where I had my in-laws living with me as well, and they interfered a lot with our daily decisions. Of course, that marriage was of a abusive nature, so there was physical, mental, verbal abuse that kept on going, and it was also not just from him, from also his family members. Mm-hmm. They believed that you should be at home and you should just raise the kids. What it was actually the abuse that affirmed to me that I must stay in school. I know a lot of billionaires and self-made millionaires out there that they don't think that going to school is a must. In my situation, in my humble opinion, I think it was, and it is the most important thing. And it was the freedom that it was my savior. School was my savior. Mm-hmm. So I basically, when I came into this country, I also was very intimidated by going to. I still hadn't finished my high school. I had only finished 9th grade, so I still have to finish high school. So we went to the community college. I told my ex, I said, I can't go to high school. I'm going to be bullied. People, I don't speak English very well. I was really intimidated by that. Wow. So we went. I said, well, can we just go to the community college and see if they have like, a way that I can just get into high school or finish my high school diploma. A lot of countries have that. So we went there to the community college, and they said, well, we let's do an assessment on her first. And they did that. And they tested my, math and physics and other skills. And I scored in the 90th percentile. So they classified me as a gifted kid. Go figure. So, and then that's how I started. What's that? Yeah. So I did the language for 6 months, and then I started chemical engineering. Well, it was actually chemical, just a BS in chemistry at that point. I fell in love with chemistry and biology. They just came to me naturally. So I completed 3 years of chemical engineering between the community college and also University of Nebraska of Omaha. And I also minored in biotech. I recall one day I was pregnant with my daughter, maybe like 7 or 8 months pregnant, and I was sitting in we were in the quantitative chemical analysis lab. We're all just leaning over. We're all trying to figure out this unknown substance and trying to figure out what chemical it was. And it hit me right there. And then I want to talk to people. And I looked around, everybody's just so quiet and so focused, on their little pipettes. And I was like, I need to talk to people. I can't do this. I need to change career. That's it. Chemistry is not for me. So I went home that day and I told my ex-husband just had a hissy fit over this. He's like, nope, I can't wait for you to finish college so you can take over raising the kids. I'm trying to help here, but it's really your responsibility. He's like, what do you have in mind? I said, well, I want to go to medical school. He's like, absolutely not. I am not going to sit here and raise the kids for 10 more years while you go to college. I said, well, I'm not going to be a chemical engineer. This is not something I can do. So I ended up switching to pharmacy school, to the doctorate program at Creighton University Medical Center. So when I started, my daughter was only 2 months old. And I graduated from pharmacy school with a doctorate at the age of 23. Mind you, only 40% of teen moms finish high school. And according to CDC, less than 2%, more like 1.5 something percent actually finish college, but they finish it by the age of 30. I finished my doctorate by the age of 23, and I was actually a single mom during my pharmacy school. So, yeah.
How did you manage through while you were like pregnant, taking care of the kids, going to school, and then going through your pharmacy school? You were single at that time, right? Raising the kids, or how did you manage through that financially, just emotionally? Like, how did you get through all that?
I'm still trying to figure that out. Sometimes I look back and like nowadays I sit there try to do a CE credit, continue education credit, and I can't sit and focus. I'm like, how did I do this? I question my own self sometimes too. But honestly, it was a lot of it is just dedication. It was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I financially, I didn't actually didn't have the means for it, and my family didn't support me. I accidentally stumbled on what's called welfare, which is the government assistance program for low-income moms with children. I stumbled upon him through a friend that I had met in pharmacy school, and I'll tell you a little bit here how I came to actually start talking about this issue. And she mentioned the welfare. So I went on welfare and student loans. I had a ton of student loans by the time I finished pharmacy school. And I had the mentality that you want to make money, you have to spend money. Things don't just come for free. Yeah, so you have to invest in yourself. You have to invest yourself in becoming a better person every single day. You can't just become complacent and say, well, no, I have a doctorate. I don't have to do anything new. No, every single day you have to read something new. You have to learn new words. That's a challenging thing for foreigners. I have dictionary app on my phone, and I constantly learn new skills and new words. I wanted to share actually about how I came about getting to where I was in my education. I went to Creighton University, like I mentioned. When I was there, while I was in school, the abuse and the family challenges were getting worse by my ex and his family. So it started to affect my grades. And that was actually from the first semester. One day I got pulled into the associate dean's office. Her name was Linda Shearton, who I have the utmost respect and admiration for. She's a kind and sincere human being who was put on this earth to touch people's life in the most profound ways. This woman believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. She believed in me when the whole world just said, you don't deserve to be anything but a mother, but get married, but stay at home, be boxed in like a caged bird. This woman told me, when she pulled me into her office, she said, I don't know what's going on with you, but I do know one thing. When I hand selected your application into pharmacy school, I think you're one of the brightest human being, and ladies, and I see a great future for you. She said, what's going on? And I started giving her all these excuses about how, my daughter is 2 months old, my son is 3.5, and my daughter is really sick, which were all true. But I was afraid to mention the troubles at home and the drama. At the end of our discussion, she looked at me and she said, you know what, I understand, but in order for me to keep you in, I need to send you to an office on campus and you must report to it. And I was like, okay. I didn't know what this office was, but when I went there, it was actually a counselor's office. There was an office full of therapists. So you must understand one thing. My ex had brainwashed me to think negatively of any therapists and to not discuss our lives with anyone, and that he's the only one that I should trust, and that no one else cares about my well-being. So I was just initially, apprehensive and just hesitant, and I just didn't want to. I just had to do it because Dr. Shearton gave me that ultimatum. At the first session, we went through the typical introductions and how, what kind of life I have at home and all this stuff. And she gave me some questions and homeworks to answer for our next session. Now, the following session was a little bit different. She actually, she handed me a book called The Batterer. And I have this book still to this day. It's written by Donald Dutton and Susan Goland. Sitting there, I didn't really understand the word batter. I'd only been in the country for 6 years, never thought about, that beating is not normal. I didn't grow up in a house where beating was a thing. We never, my dad never raised his hand on my mom, but we hear it in the culture. I looked up the word after I left her office, and she gave me very specific instructions. She told me that she has a new locker for me. It's near Dr. Shearton's office, and no one is allowed to know of it. And that no one, not a friend, not my husband, and anything she gives me from now goes in that locker. So I was a little surprised because I have to tell my husband everything. I was just brainwashed. I have to tell him everything. I said, what am I going to tell him? She said, well, just tell him that I'm teaching you how to study again. So I started to read the book, and I started to understand what was going on. I started to relate to the abusive stories and the personalities in the book, and that one, and what my husband was. That's when I realized that I was a victim of domestic abuse and that I was brainwashed. I was married to a clinical narcissist. That book really awoken something in me. I started to view him differently. I started to view him the way he is. When I went back to her after I finished the book, I was a different person. I was very receptive to what she had to say and to her instructions. We started analyzing my life and working on exit strategies, not just one. I started to write. I started to write things down in pros and cons list. I started structuring, organizing my thinking process. I learned to focus and to have plans, not just one, have plan A, B, and C in case plan A doesn't fall through or something happens, then I need to be able to shift to plan B and plan C. And I adopted that mentality, that kind of line of thinking, even throughout my life. Whenever I have strategy or any issues, I always have to have more than one situation worked out through my head so I can get somewhere.
So if I may interject here, in your story, as far as, a couple of things that have come out here for the audience that are just tuning in. So in sharing your story, you were in the middle of an abusive relationship, and usually the abuser tries to isolate the person that they're abusing to make them feel like they have no way out. And you had this angel, this person that appeared in your life that you accepted the help that came to you. And I think that's what I want to share with the audience, is that it's really important that when you're in a situation that's difficult, whether it's abuse or just a very challenging situation, that there's nothing wrong with reaching out to people and to accepting the help of others that want to help you so that you can get out of your situation. And the other piece you mentioned regarding that there's always a solution, and having several different strategies and options that you can find a solution for your problems. So that's really the thing I wanted to key in for the audience. So going back to your story regarding, you were starting to kind of understand the situation you were in. So how did you finally exit that relationship and finally kind of get into being on your own and starting kind of your life again?
So I had a friend in pharmacy school. She, every time I would sit and complain to her, she, at the end of it, she would say, give me one sentence. Have you had enough yet? And then I would pause, because what was enough? What do I do with that? And then I would, like a week or two later, I would say the same thing. And then she'd just look at me and she was like, so have you had enough yet? And then finally, after my second year, or during my second year of pharmacy school, I had had enough. I had realized that I needed to get out. This is not getting anywhere. This is just a lot of weight. I come from a very conservative Christian background where divorce is not heard of. And when I got married, there was a lot of objections to my marriage. So I also didn't want to embarrass my father, didn't want to embarrass my uncles and my dad and my mom and everybody in the culture. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But then I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I need to get out. I need my safety. I need to be able to raise these kids. I actually got to the point of, I thought about committing suicide several times. I planned it out, but then I talked myself out of it. And what got me to talk myself out of it was I would think of my kids, and then thinking of them, I'm like, okay, who's going to raise these kids? They're going to end up like their dad and their uncles. I don't want that for my children. I want something new for my children. And the only way to do it is going to be me. I am the one that's going to get them out of this and break the cycle here. So I changed. I stuck around. And during my, when I was seeing that therapist, I applied for welfare. They assigned me an attorney. Didn't know they had that. I was approached for additional student loans. The school actually was, the entire school, the faculty at Creighton University, I credit my success and my freedom, my independence to that team of professors, because they were truly the family I didn't have here.
Mhm.
And they saw something in me, and I'm forever thankful to them. And if I ever write a book, they will be highlighted in depth.
You will write this book. Well, that's an amazing story so far. Like how I mean, that's a tough situation. That's a really tough
Mm-hmm.
situation to be in an abusive relationship. There's a lot of, for those that have never been in that kind of relationship or experienced a toxic relationship, it's an emotionally, mentally, physically draining experience, and sometimes you don't even know how you're going to get out of it. And but Darina, you're such a strong person, a leader. I mean, even before you even left your country, you had a very strong mindset, and so this is why you were able to really push through, and with the help of those that were around you. So that's amazing. So I want to pause here and see any questions or comments from the audience. Feel free to share your comments as we're having this conversation. Any questions that you might have regarding Dr. Douchi's experience so far, and how she, coming from Syria to the United States and really working through a very challenging situation in her family and her marriage, but yet was able to overcome and get through her pharmacy school and kind of getting to where she is today. And I wanted to jump into another topic of how did you, so you're coming from a very conservative, almost male-dominated society,
Mm-hmm.
and you entered the U.S. Army. How did
Yeah.
that happen? How did that even happen? Like from this timid, I'm afraid, like how do I get out of this, to now I am leading, I'm like part of this military service. How did you transition to that, or when did that happen for you?
So, so I actually graduated pharmacy school in 2003. I worked as a pharmacist for about 7 years, and then in 2009, recession was at its highest, and then they were dropping the pharmacist hours down to like half time, and I still had financial responsibilities to pay, the student loans and my kids and stuff. But then I noticed something was happening. My ex was starting to influence the kids with certain behaviors, and I didn't want that. I didn't want them to be raised that way. So I looked into different options, and the military was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I had made the difficult decision of removing the kids from their father twice in my life. Once when I got divorced, and one when I joined the military. Sometimes it sounds like I might be, my life revolves around my education, but really my life revolves around my children. They were the two individuals that I've wanted to bring to this world and to raise them exceptionally, and I knew they could. So when I joined the military, removing them temporarily from their dad, I wanted them to be free thinkers. I wanted them to be independent with their decisions, that you don't have to just do what the society and the culture wants you to do. Like I was forced to do. I just wanted them to just be themselves, right? This is America, it's freedom. So that's how I joined the military. And I'm glad I did, because it's honestly, it was the best thing. Yes, it was difficult. There was so many challenges. And I've had bad days, some really bad situations in the military, but it made me who I am today. And I don't regret it. And I would do it all over again. And I actually advise my kids to join the military, to learn a skill and a mentality mindset that you don't have if you just work with the average in the normal world settings.
Yeah. So when you were leaving the military, what would you say was the one thing that was most beneficial for you that you gained from being in the military?
Adaptability. Naturally we're adaptable as foreigners. You tend to be, you accept this new world, you accept this new language, you're gonna accept how people think and how they dress and all this stuff. But then when you go into the military and you're tossed around every couple of years in a new city, and you're dealing with new staff every other day. I'm having staff that I didn't even choose, right? So active duty members, you don't interview, or you go into a base, to a new department. I have 150 staff members. I didn't choose any of them. And I'm like, Wow. So you have to learn all this stuff. That's a lot to take in, and it changes you, but it changes you in a positive way. Like I hate when people just dwell over the negative experience of anything, whether it's the military or not, because I'm like, there's so many great things that happen there, meeting these people, getting to learn people's personalities, the skills I learned as far as for my business, for my job, it made me a much more marketable pharmacist. I don't even work in the capacity of a pharmacist. I work in a capacity of a businesswoman who negotiate contracts and set benefits for Medicare, Medicaid, and the Department of Defense. I see things from a different, angle now. But what was great about also exiting the military, the amount of respect I earned, I gained from my kids and from my family and from my community. It just reassured to me that, what, there's more I can do to better myself. And
Absolutely.
so that's just that's what I came out with.
Yeah, so that adaptability, that flexibility, like you kind of learn as you go. So that's a really, really key skill to have. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to mention, you mentioned it's like you had this also from coming from another country, you had to adapt. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I guess the key takeaway here is to kind of lead more empowered, be like more confident, to really be successful in life, focusing on how do I adapt to change. That adaptability is crucial to anyone's success. Is how do I adapt to tough situations? How do I adapt to these different environments? So speaking of different environments and different experiences, so you go from you're studying to now you're in the military, now you're working in this corporate arena, and now you're also aspiring to be an entrepreneur. So you have this new company that you're founding now. Tell us a little bit more about this company that you started, that's kind of in the beginning stages, and why did you decide why now?
It wasn't actually just now. It's something that's been brewing for a while, for quite some times. A few years ago, I came to realize my self-worth. I think with all the different adversities I've faced, and also the lack of self-esteem over the years that I've had to rebuild, and I've had to work on rebuilding my self-esteem,
Yeah.
I had proven to myself that the value I add to every team I became part of. And I also recognized the gift that I have, which is understanding the federal healthcare system, how the money moves around, how the benefits are set, which is a unique skill set for my industry. I have also have an intuition for things in that line of work. So that the federal healthcare system is a convoluted system. So I found a niche in that system, and I'm working on making it grow.
Mm-hmm.
So as an honorably disabled veteran, the Veterans Administration, for those that don't know, the Veterans Administration, for our worldly friends, that is the office from the government office that takes care of the soldiers that are retired from the service. They call it Veterans Administration. They have put in place many initiatives and programs to promote entrepreneurship among veterans. They want them to, start their own businesses, not work for people. I also happen to be very good with federal contracts. And that's how it started. I decided to start a small female disabled veteran defense contracting company. It's still in its infant stages. But I have great vision for it, and I can't wait until it actually comes to fruition.
Well, I can tell you based on your story so far, and I'm sure the audience will agree, that that's a vision that's going to happen. Just like you becoming a businesswoman, just like you joining the service, just like completing your PhD at 23 and raising two beautiful children, now all grown up, your kids now, and they're
Yes.
successful as well. So I think that's definitely something that is definitely going to happen. If you could choose one word as to why did you, what's your why behind starting this company, what would that word be or words be?
It's really simple. It's not one word.
Yeah, several words.
Yeah, don't do that to me, not with the one word. But I want to hustle for myself now, you know. I'm done hustling for people. I love helping other people, but I want to build something of my own. It was just about me now. I think if I can see what I can do and put all my greatness, all my skills together, all the friends that I have, all my network into this little project, it's going to be great. I'm going to do some seriously good things with it.
So it sounds like you're very, very, very passionate about it. And we can't wait to see when this all comes to fruition, when it blossoms into the amazing company that it's going to be one day. So just thanks for sharing that with us. So I want to get back into a little bit more details about your life and your experiences. What would you say was your biggest challenge that you experienced? If it was already mentioned, or if not, that's fine. You can talk about
Yeah.
it. But what would you say was your biggest challenge that you faced, and what was the thing that was most rewarding as you were going through your life?
No, actually, we didn't talk about that. The biggest challenge was the cultural barriers, creating that healthy balance between both my culture and family and then my personal needs, right? Being, like I mentioned, being a Christian, divorced is very challenging in a society that I came from.
Mhm.
So I just couldn't afford to offend my family or the
Mm.
culture. So I was very careful with how I conducted myself, how and also at the end of the day, it's my personal satisfaction that matters. It's my dreams. If I am not happy, who cares? Honestly, that just became my attitude after a while. I need to be happy. I need to be content. They decided for me. That was the biggest challenge. Then there was a lot of like internal noise, which is the doubting, and then there's a lot of external noise around you that's discouraging you, that you can't do it, or you're not worthy of this, or whatever. You're just so pretty, people focus on that, and I hate it whenever people would tell me you're so pretty. I want people to see that I am intelligent. I want people to see my potential, but people just saw the outside, and that bothered me. So actually part of joining the military, back to that, was because I just wanted to strip away the beauty. I wanted to be a basic soldier, see me for who I am, and experience my intelligence just through a uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also,
We're all the same behind that uniform, when you wear that.
mhm, absolutely. So also part of the challenge was keep modifying that price, right? There's a price at the end of things, and I want to reach it. And this is something that I constantly have to work on maintaining. I'm
Mhm.
never content. So at the same time, it's rewarding, to be successful, but it's also rewarding to know that I'm not done.
Mm.
There's more to go forward to.
Yeah, there's always room for growth. You
You
know.
know, it's something that was a part of under that challenging with the culture issues. I used to live this conflict, this identity conflict. Am I
Mhm.
an Arab woman, or am I an American woman? I was born in Syria, and I came here at such a young age. I associate more with the American girls, so I really struggled with that.
Yeah.
Right before commissioning into the military, I finally told myself, you know what, I just can't live this constant internal conflict. So I had to choose a side. And I finally decided that, yes, I am an Arab American, Arab woman, but I am a liberated American woman mentally, and I'm going to stick to it. And I'm glad I did. And it reduced the confusion, and things just became clearer once I made that decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you made the choice. Like
Mm-hmm.
like nobody made it for you. And I think that's what makes it powerful, is that when you want to define who you are, whether where you're from, what you know about, what you want to do. And a lot of times we have a lot of pressure from society, from culture, from religion, from family, from friends. I mean, even the media pressures us to be a certain way, act a certain way, want certain things. And at the end of the day, it's like, until you're clear and you make that choice of what you want to do in your life, you're never going to feel at peace.
That's true.
You're never going to feel at peace. So it looks definitely that you are at peace of where you are, and you're consistently growing in that. So that's really inspiring, and it's amazing. And I'm gonna check here some of the comments that some of the folks have made. We had a question which I think they already answered, was what's the biggest lesson you took from the military, and a few comments about you being an inspiring woman, and they wanted to know what was the book that you mentioned earlier.
The book is called The Batter, and I'll send you the link of that. Batter means, beating up. You batter somebody.
That on the description of the book that was provided. And so just a lot of really great comments. So you guys keep the comments coming. Your questions are definitely welcome, and be part of the conversation, and of Dr. Douchi's, Darina's inspiring story that is sharing with us. She's being very transparent with us, and it's not something that's very easy to do, to show the things that are vulnerable to you, but being able to do it in a way so that others can see that you can be vulnerable and you can still succeed, and share that with each other. So I want to step into one of the topics that I'm like so passionate about, which is around personal values.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think everything that we do is based on our values. I believe that. I think the values is the why we do something, is the how we do something. Like we have this, like the why, like we want to do something, the what we want to do something, and the how. So how we do something is based on our values, what we think is important, what we prioritize in our life. And so what would you say are your personal values that have really shaped you and has helped you succeed and get to where you are today?
I would say, first and foremost, is integrity. Is by far the most valuable personal value for me. If you don't have integrity, you lack honesty and people's trust in you. If I have to question someone's integrity, they're out of my life. That's just simply how I operate. The other one is self-enhancement. You can define that as an achievement or power. I just can't accept who I am today to be the same person in 5 years. I don't achieve things in life to prove to anybody anything. I do it simply because it drives me to the next greater thing in life. And what's next, the next great thing in life that I'm going to accomplish is, it might be just a simple book. It could be joining the military, or entering a challenging competition, competitive industry, things like that. But it drives me, gives you that drive. So that self-enhancement is very important to me. Then independence. Those three tie in together, whether it's financial independence or just physical well-being, intellectual independence. I can't and will not be able to be controlled by anyone. I've demonstrated that, I think, when I left that oppressed life. I was taught to conform to it, but I just couldn't. So breaking away from it, being an independent individual, is something I cherish myself, and I certainly want everybody to experience, because if you're not independent, you can't survive freely.
Yeah. So like the key takeaways would be that you value integrity. So integrity is like doing what's right when no one's looking. You do what's right no matter what. It's that, being honest. And then self-enhancement, continuously learn. I mean, you are continuously learning forever. You're still learning. You're like it seems like you're like a life learner. You're like a life learner, and that's a great trait to have as a leader, as an individual. And like I said earlier when we first started this broadcast, is that we're all leaders. It doesn't matter if you run a company, whether you're a CEO, whether you're just at home taking care of your kids and your family, you are leading your life. And so if you lead your life with integrity, you continuously learn, and that's going to really drive you forward. So that's great that you're sharing that with the audience today. So let's talk about what has shaped you to become the person, the leader that you are today. What kind of experiences, or what kind of people or things that really shaped you to become the leader, the person that you are today?
Um, Yeah, so I know some people sometimes like they have one individual. For me, I think everyone I've encountered, and maybe that sounds cliche, but really every individual I've encountered have shaped me, have added something to my life, right? Like the girl that introduced me to welfare, or the person that that introduced me to you. I didn't have a mentor going through school. I did have a mentor when I was a young pharmacist. She taught me, how to be a pharmacist. And then, but my kids have truly been my mentors for in many different ways, because they've influenced me to be a better mom. They've influenced me to, to focus on my goals. Sometimes I've doubted myself, and my kids have come around and snapped me out of it, as young as they are, but they are so powerful in that. Like you mentioned earlier, also, growing up in a male dominant society, I never understood that concept, like he can do it, you can't do it because I'm a girl, right? That just developed a rebellious personality in me. I became rebellious about that idea. So I was like, well, if you can do it, I can do it too. If you can do it, I can do it even better. I mean, that became my attitude in life. Actually, speaking of rebels, this particular history figure is actually somebody I have great admiration. I think she's my mentor from another world, right? From another, I don't know, 2,000
History.
years ago. History,
History.
exactly. Growing up, I was fascinated by the rebel queen herself, Queen Zenobia. I don't know if you know her. She was a 3rd century queen of the Palmyra Empire in Syria, and we're talking about 3rd century here.
Wow, wow, okay.
She was a warrior queen who ruled after her husband's death and spread her reign to Persia and Egypt, fighting
Wow.
against the Roman Empire. She trained her own troops. And what I admire the most about her is how she fostered this an intellectual environment in her court. She was open to scholars and philosophers. She was very tolerant toward her subjects and protected religious minorities.
Mhm.
The queen maintained a stable administration which governed a multicultural, multi-ethnic empire. This was fascinating to be able to have all those qualities. While being a warrior queen, she was fair, a fair woman. She was powerful. So it can be done. So I've always kind of looked up to her as somebody that, I can be powerful. I could be a warrior. I could be a good mother. I could be all the stuff. She did it, right? So that's one. Another
Wow.
person that shaped me, yeah, was Dr. Shooten herself, and the faculty at the pharmacy school. They believed in me when the society didn't, and I'm forever thankful for that. So yeah, a lot of things shape you, not just one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like these conversations are so critical because I mean, sometimes you're not lucky enough, or maybe you don't seek out a mentor, but sometimes the mentors present themselves in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like I've heard this quote, like when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and when the teacher is ready, the student appears. And I think that's kind of life. And I'm sure somebody listening to this broadcast and it's part of this conversation, they're going to take something away, and that's going to help to shape them into whatever decision they may have to make in their life. So that's amazing as far as the amount of people that have shaped you, to include someone from way back when in history. So that's really, really,
And
really
so I'm searching, I'm taking applications for mentors. I'm looking for a mentor. So if there's somebody listening to this and wants to be my mentor, I really want one. More than one. I'll take more than one.
no, you can definitely have more than one for different things. So that's great. So let's go on to the next question I have. Let's talk about lessons. So I'm a huge proponent of life is not about perfection, but progress. And
Mm-hmm.
and there's no mistakes in life. They're just experiences that you learn from. They're only a mistake
Mm-hmm.
if you don't learn from them. So
Yeah,
it's almost like, your life is like you're in college, and the price, the tuition you pay are the mistakes you make. So
that's
you
a good way to put it.
I heard so I don't know where I heard that from, but like, tuition is expensive, especially in the US. I don't know, Germany is not so bad, but in the US tuition is very expensive. And so when you're learning your life lessons, like my dad tells me, like there's two things that happens when you make mistakes. You pay them with time and money.
That's
and,
right.
and so, like, hey dad, if you're listening. but but like, there's time and money and energy and emotional things that happen to you, physical things that happen to you, but you learn something. And so what would you say, I mean, I'm sure you have had many lessons in your life, but what would you say has been your greatest lesson so far? Or in other words, if you can go back and tell young Darina, like have a conversation with her, like Back to the Future, and you have a conversation with her, what would you say is your greatest lesson or advice that you wanted to share with her?
To trust your intuition. Don't hesitate. That's like the best lesson I have learned. And to trust, just there's this little bug inside my gut. It's my gut feeling. I have learned to listen to it, and when something doesn't sound right, I follow through. I analyze it, I process it, and then I make peace with it and let it go, and then think of something else. So the hesitation aspect is huge for people like me who come from a broken background. You tend to don't have the best self-esteem, and you doubt yourself, but then you get over it. The other thing, don't expect people to help you. No one owes you anything. If you don't get it done, it won't happen. There's this whole where people are like, well, this is not fair. So yeah, life is not fair. What are you going to do about it? Don't always assume there's no one there to lean on. Be prepared to enter this fight alone. Is it going to get done? Yeah, it's going to be done. So, so those are my life lessons.
Not to play the victim. Situation, to like move forward, do what you have to do, and the doors are going to open for you as you're taking action. So that's a great lesson. I mean, I think a lot of times it takes people a long time to get it, or they never get it at all. So it's really important. Somebody had made a comment here regarding about mistakes or about failure. Said fail means first attempt and learn. So yeah.
Hey, Steve. Steve is my great friend. How are you, Steve Rudner? I love you, man.
Absolutely. And so, so that's a great lesson to learn. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most important lessons to learn in life. It's like you just can't be the victim. You have to really take matters into your own hand and press forward, and not wait to be rescued.
And that's my attitude right now about my business too. Okay, I'm going to start a business, and if it fails, it fails. What do I got to learn or lose, right? I just learned it. I learned a new experience, a new skill set that I didn't have before starting the business. I went through the process of paperwork, so now I have appreciation for small businesses. I'm like, my gosh, the amount of work you all have to do.
Yes. You meant the word. Oh, you got to go back into the contract.
Yes. So yeah.
Exactly. Yes. So the next question I wanted to talk about and ask you about is, what would you say are you most proud of?
The new woman I've become. Someone, once described me as a unicorn, which I chuckled about. And then another one, he keeps describing me as the phoenix rising from the ashes. I'm like, wow, that's very dramatic. Right? So, but I'm so proud of myself. I'm proud that I've become an example of determination and inspiration for many men and women, not just women. Also very proud of my wonderful children, their successes in the relationship we've fostered together. It's truly unique. That was actually, one of the challenges when I left my ex, just being a single mom, young foreigner, didn't know what to do. And there's everybody saying, you're coming from kids that come from broken families, end up being unsuccessful, they end up being in jail, they have all these problems, but they're the complete opposite. And we have such a beautiful relationship. And it's not just with me, they've been able to have a great relationship with their father. So just being able to have that emotional intelligence and to feed it into your children. They're both, they have great accomplishments in school, certainly not dropouts, certainly don't have health problems, certainly have not been incarcerated. And those are great things to be proud of.
Yeah, and you've been an amazing example of it. I mean, like, I think whoever said you were the phoenix rising from the ashes, I think that's spot on. That's definitely spot on because there's a lot of people that can, going back to what you said earlier about, don't expect someone just to do things for you. And you chose to be empowered. You chose not to be the victim. You chose to be the example for your children. And they were the ones that really helped you through your tough situations. Like you were like contemplating before suicide. You didn't want to be here anymore. And well, there were other plans. There were other plans for you, my dear.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
You were supposed to have this conversation today with us and inspiring somebody in the audience. And there's going to be a lot more that you're going to end up sharing with the world. And this is great that you have this these accomplishments. So I wanted to finalize with this question before we leave, before we end today's broadcast. And I wanted to ask if you could leave one thing, like what legacy do you want to leave behind? What if this was your last day on earth and you just say, this is my final legacy, this is what I'm leaving behind, what would that be?
It would be ending underage marriage. It is the biggest crime to humankind. It deprives children from their innocence. It's simply criminal. It's not marriage, but it's raped. It's rape. You brainwash the kids in these societies to accept this concept that it's okay to be violated. If mommy and daddy said so. She's still a child. She's still innocent. You violated her. You must protect her. So if I can leave this world in a better place of whether it's understanding, education, and it starts from a government, side. The governments from these different countries have to have stricter rules on stopping and ending underage marriage, not sending them abroad. Did I have to go through all this stuff to be where I am? That's not true. There are so many successful women that didn't have to go through the stuff I went through. They still managed to be very successful. So that's what I would leave the world with.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, that's a great undertaking. And I think one of the biggest ways to change the world is by speaking up against it, being able to share like this, having these conversations so that others may hear and see and share with the other conversations that are taking place around this subject, because this is something that's been going on, I'm sure, in different countries and different, still going on today. So, so this is such an amazing story, inspiring story that you're sharing with us. So before we end our broadcast today, I wanted to see if there's any questions, any comments, any additional comments from a lot of good comments out here for you, Darina. So everybody's tuning in. It seems like they're inspired. So, and from the audience, like what thoughts do you have? What questions do you have? Let's see, we have our folks out here in the audience. A lot of proud people out here loving the session.
Love you guys. I love everybody that's on there. I recognize some names.
Yeah, there's a few people out here. So yeah, please send your questions, your comments, and also if you know or if you're interested in also being part of the Empowered Leader Conversations, just contact me at the information that's up on the screen, my email. So, okay, well, I just want to first of all just thank the audience that joined us and for your comments, for your questions. And most of all, I want to thank you, Darina, for being a part of this conversation. Words can't even express how I feel that you're my first guest on this conversation, and it's a powerful topic, many powerful topics. We talked about domestic abuse. We talked about, aspiring to go to school, raising kids on your own. We talked about, just different things that were challenging for you. And at the end of the day, you are making strides. You are inspiring individuals every day in everything that you do. And I'm looking forward to, and I'm sure the rest of the audience is looking forward to see what else is next for Dr. Douchi in the future.
Oh, wait, we forgot to mention, I paid my student loans. Wow, many years ago, like 7 years ago. So yay!
It's a big thing in the U.S. for those that are like in Europe. Like
that's a huge thing.
So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this Empowered Leader conversation with the amazing Dr. Darina Douchi. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your questions. Make sure to stay connected so you can see any future Empowered Leader conversations by joining Coach Beli Coaching Facebook, Instagram, and the Lead Empowered with Coach Beli community on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe, stay tuned, and be on the lookout for what's next. So again, thank you, and we will see you next time. Bye.
See you, everyone.